Mr. Humphrey,
Present.
Dr. Petty,
Present.
Ms. Williams, Mr. Hodge.
Here.
Mr. Roberts, are you on yet? Patton, are you on? All right, we have a quorum.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we, first of all, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that all right with everybody? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Now, with that out of the way, can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
All right, the motion has been made and properly seconded, and so the agenda for tonight is adopted. The agenda item that we have for tonight is the superintendent search process. Steve Brotherton is here with us tonight. We had a very fruitful conversation, and I will yield the floor to Steve to go ahead on and take it away.
All right, thank you. Glad to be here tonight. Good to see everybody. I was here a couple weeks ago. I just wanted to give a quick overview again of who I am. Dr. Steve Brotherton, retired superintendent from the Afton School District, retired 4 years ago. Since that time, I've been doing some work with the Transformational Leadership Center out of Washington University. So I work with 3 city schools, one down in South City, one in North City, and one in Midtown by Powell Hall. So I work with the principal and the leadership team in those buildings, trying to help them do some strategic planning. So that's what I've been doing since retirement, along with the superintendent searches. So since we met last time, I quickly, probably in about 10 minutes, went through the entire search process for the superintendency. Didn't give you guys a lot of chance for questions, didn't give you a lot of chance for me to fill in some details about what MSBA does and how we hope to provide a really robust experience for the district. So I want to do that tonight. And since that time also, I think we've changed a little bit. We pivoted where we're looking at an interim superintendent for next school year. So really the work for Missouri school boards would begin in the fall, looking for somebody to take over in 23-24. That makes sense to everybody right now? Yes, yes, okay. So I'm going to just kind of walk us through what Missouri School Boards does for the process, which I kind of did quickly last time, starting with, I think this meeting was titled Focus Group originally. What would have happened had we been working through the process is I'd be taking information that you all turned into Missouri School Boards through some survey work. Also, there's a community survey that's been put out, and usually I go into the district and do several focus groups, taking all of that information back to you, and then looking for some connections, some gaps maybe, or some overlaps of what all of those folks are saying. What is your internal community saying? What are your parents saying? What are you as board members saying? And looking for some themes that then we build a fit around when we start doing the recruitment of applications. So that work is really important. And also, since I've been working with the district a little bit, I've noticed that the need to engage the community is really important to the school district. And I feel like that if we would have rushed things through and tried to do a search at the end of the school year, a couple of things wouldn't have gone well. One, we wouldn't have had time to really deeply engage the community. And second, we're not getting the robust number of applications that I would have liked to have seen. This is not the time of year when it gets to be this late where folks are really thinking about applying. They're pretty much set for next year. So it was kind of late in the process to get started. And then the other thing, just logistically, we're going to have to schedule next year like 4 extra meetings from the board to go through some of the work that needs to be done. I think we would have had some trouble coordinating all those calendars, getting everybody together. I know we were having trouble coordinating calendars just to try to do some of the focus groups. So really didn't want to rush the process because you guys know as board members, this is probably one of the most important things that you'll do as a board to pick the next leader of Normandy. And also, when we go through the process, doing the needs assessment work, listening to the community. You learn a lot about your community, you learn a lot about each other, and you learn a lot about what are the strengths in the district and what are some opportunities for us to improve. And in order to do that, we really needed the time to work with groups. So that is the very first step, and that we call that the needs assessment or the fit piece. Anybody have any questions on that or any thoughts on that? All right, so at this time, I did bring a handout. I have the information from the board members that turned in survey work to MSBA, and that's all kind of collated, and there's a number score. It's a composite score of everybody that has turned that in. And I thought we could just go through that. Those of you guys that are home, I think we emailed this to them today, did we not? Yeah, so you could pull that up on your email. Should have got an email from Alex that has an attachment. We had 5. So when we do it next year, we'll get 7. How's that? But I think you get right away to notice some things about what's happening in the district. So the way this is set up, I highlight it so I can show you that if you want to see. There's some categories. The first one on the first page is communications and community engagement. And then there's some areas that you had to like rank what were the most important, what were the least important. And when I take boards through this, what I usually do is ask them to look for the lowest numbers in those sections, things that are under a 2, because that means the collective group of folks that turned in surveys all thought that that was an important aspect of things. And then we can also go through and look at some of the higher numbers if there's something that stands out. And just, I have folks talk about like, why do you think that number came that way? Or why did you rank that? Or is there things that surprise you? And we go through the entire survey, and then we'll also go through, there's some open-ended questions that you could all respond to. The community survey that went out already as well mirrors this survey. There's a section on community, there's a section on district operations, there's a section on board relations, and community members are asked to kind of rank those things as well. And then they have an opportunity to do some open-ended questions like what are the strengths of the district and what are some opportunities to improve in the district. So then you guys will get all of that information. There's usually hundreds of responses where we can look at strengths and opportunities for improvement. And we'll look to see, is the board saying the same thing that the community is saying? The other piece, when I have you look at the open-ended questions, we'll do this when we do it next time, but if you wanted for your own sake, you get to see what other board members thought and wrote down and see if that connects with what you're thinking, or amongst the board, do we need to have some discussion of, do we have alignment amongst all of us? Are there reasons why somebody put something down that somebody else thinks, no, I thought that was a strength and you thought that was a weakness, and we can have some conversation around that. Real quick, I think when we look at this survey, it wouldn't surprise you probably if I told you that folks were concerned about attendance, right? And you probably already know that a little bit about staffing and having a robust staff, folks that are going to be in the classroom every day, not substitutes. About morale. And, you know, I've been doing this since COVID's been going on, and probably every district that I've done it with, morale has been an issue since COVID. It's hard for people to be teaching during these times with COVID going on. And, you know, they were on computers, they were off computers, they were learning new technologies, kids were in and out, and that affects attendance as well. So those are the kinds of things that we will explore through survey work, your survey and the community survey work. The focus group work, when we can talk in the fall, how many groups, who you want me to talk to. I like to do the internal groups, usually the board cabinet, and then another internal group of teachers and support staff. And then we can go as far out with external groups as the board would like me to do. So we can have one community night, we can do a parent night, we can do a business night. And then I got a call from somebody from Normandy I thought was a really cool idea that we do a student focus group as well. So I'm happy to do that. And just for your information, when I do the focus group work, I do some process work where they need to think about what are the characteristics they want to see in a new superintendent. That's pretty easy to do. I also do some process work about like, okay, we're getting a new superintendent, which probably means there's going to be a new direction in the district. What are your hopes that are going to happen in the district? And what are your fears that are going to happen in the district? And have them kind of work in small teams of like 4 or 5 with Post-it notes, create some charts, and then create some themes that come out of that. Those are the things that I bring back to a report to the board as well. So looking at the focus group work, community survey work, board survey work, that's where we develop that first part with the needs assessment. That makes sense, everybody? You also already filled out, since we did have the position posted, like, what is the salary that we would like to offer? Do we want this person to have a doctorate? Obviously, they want to have superintendent certification. You turn some of that work into Missouri school boards, and they created a flyer and a brochure that goes out for the second step is recruitment. So we do direct mailings, and then we also post things on our website, and then we have companion sites from across the country, so other states, school boards association. And we will also put an ad in a national magazine to do some recruitment. So that the mailings go to like principals, folks that are assistant superintendents, actually go to superintendents too, just to get the word out to the educational community. You've probably seen a couple of those come in the mail. Might even got Normandy's in the mail, right? That gives us a nice pool to pull from. So that part is called the recruitment part. Then the next part, we look at just who's applying, and this is where I do the heavy lifting for you. I will interview everybody that applies. I'll check references for folks that apply, and try to coordinate questions. I'll create questions that go with what we determined in the fit, along with things that are just superintendent standards. Of course, they're going to have to know budget. They're going to have to know curriculum. But like for Normandy, for example, I'm thinking about, we'd probably be asking them a screening question about, have you had experience increasing attendance in a school district? Or what are your thoughts, or how do you think you might do that? Or I might ask them a little bit about, what are some successes that you've had with an academic program, bringing up test scores, those kinds of things. And we'd probably do that again when we come back to do our interviews, but that's probably the next step would be doing that. Then there's another board meeting that comes where I report all that back to you all. And you all get to decide from the group I report back. I call it the A to Z meeting because I go alphabetically, everybody that applied, tell you everything I learned about everybody. Pick out the ones that you want to move forward to interview. We also then will need to prepare for our interview. Again, customizing questions that fit Normandy, along with questions that need to be included, again, like budget, like curriculum, all of the things that are under the superintendent standards, usually about 10 questions. And I also, depending on what's happening in the district, have a prepared prompt that I ask each applicant to do a short presentation to you all. So we'll want that prompt to be customized to your district. So maybe it is like, talk to us about how you increase attendance. I'll just use that as an example because that came up pretty quickly in the survey work that people are concerned about. So that way we'll start the interview process where those folks do a short presentation based on the prompt that we give them to prepare. Everybody has the same prompt. Everybody has the same amount of time. It gives us an opportunity to see their presentation skills, their thinking, how they put things together. Then we go through and do those interview questions and then narrow that group down to if we need a second round, or you're ready to select who you want to offer contract to, then the district would offer a contract. And finally, Missouri School Board follows up, if you guys would choose to do this, with a workshop on new superintendent and board relations. So that's the process in a nutshell. And that was a lot of me talking. So let me stop and say, well, anything that makes you think of, or anything you're wondering, or any questions that you might have.
Did you say forums or focus groups, community, parents, all those people?
Those would be focus groups. Did you want to have? We could do a forum as well.
Yes, I think the broader the interaction, the broader the engagement, the better. So I like to see these, whoever the maybe
Finalists.
yeah, I'm thinking finalists, but whoever they are, just let them make that presentation and then let these people ask them questions, the parents, the staff, the students, the community, everybody gets a chance to focus on these people and really give us some feedback. We're going to make the final decision, but I think it ought to be informed by what folks have said. What you think or not?
Let me share with you, Sheila, I'm muted myself because I didn't want to echo. Let me share with you a couple ideas that districts have tried. Focus groups are one thing. Recently, I've had 2 districts this year that did a listening group. So the board asked questions and they invited their key communicators. It might have been the union president, it might have been the Chamber of Commerce person, like 10 or 12 folks, to sit in the room and listen to the interviews. So while they saw the presentation, they listened to the board ask questions, and they had a little scoring sheet where they filled out information. And that was a data set that was turned into the board for the board to reflect on. It's a little bit different, probably a little easier to manage that way. So that would be an option we could do. I'd still want to bring folks in on the front end to do that fit piece. So what are their hopes? What are their fears? What are the characteristics? So they'll have opportunities to respond to the survey, the community survey that has all of these different categories in it. And then they'd have opportunities to come live and talk to me about their hopes, fears, and characteristics. Then I can synthesize that and bring it back to you. So we have some time if we want to, we can look at, we have some time to design it. That's another reason to slow down. So I don't know what you all think about that whole listening group. Does that leave people out? Do you want a bigger group? So we can think about that and talk about that. I have a proposed timeline that I'm going to go over in a few minutes, but I'd like to get questions out of the way first. That's a good question and a good thought about process.
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I think that Dr. Brotherton has done a great job in really just bringing us up to speed on how this process is going to work. And to Sheila's point about the community forum, I'll continue the conversation and dialogue with Dr. Brotherton and keep him abreast of what ideas and thoughts and opinions are coming from the board. And so he and I'll get together and present back to the board a final product, if you will, as to what the process will look like if that meets with the approval of the directors.
Yeah, fine with me.
Any other thoughts on the process right now? All right, well, let me just suggest a timeline. I'm thinking the best time when you post way too early at the beginning of the year, folks are running around busy with the school year and they're not really looking at postings. And we really you will have somebody in place for the whole year. So I'm suggesting we post about the beginning of October. So my timeline would be that in September, we figure out the whole process, like we're talking, and we actually put dates down on a calendar where we're going to need to meet and add those extra meetings in. So everybody on the board has those and knows what's going on. In September, we'd meet, go through the process. We'll reevaluate those flyer brochures that have been turned into MSBA just to make sure, do we want to tweak that or what we had, is that okay? And then post the position first week in October. I think a week in October. I was thinking October 3rd through November 4th would be the position posted. And this is, again, we can tweak this. This is just me looking at the calendar and kind of jumping through. During that time is when I would conduct all those focus groups. I was thinking the last week in October, I'd like to schedule a meeting with the board, kind of like this meeting, an extra meeting where we would take a look at your surveys. We'll decide if we want to use these or if you want to resurvey yourselves, the community survey and all that focus group and get the fit information. That would give me time then to customize some of those interview questions as I screen folks. So that would be a suggestion that we have a meeting the week of October 24th to do the focus groups, the week of November 7th through 11th to do that whole where I give you the A to Z and the narrowing of applications. And then we could be interviewing as soon as November 14th. So that would give us, we'd be done around Thanksgiving time. If we wanted to slow that down, if we wanted to be done in first, second week in December, I think that's fine too. So that would probably depend on how everybody's calendars, we can coordinate everybody's calendars, but folks are going to have to be available either via Zoom or in person to do the focus groups. to do the narrowing, to do the interviewing. And that September meeting, we'll probably do some of that I can probably just jump on your regular board meeting and take 10 minutes to 10, 15 minutes. So that wouldn't be an extra meeting. And we can schedule some of these things like the focus group work. If folks want to come in a little early or stay late on a board meeting night, I can do that too. So you're here the same night. I don't know what you guys usually do. When I was superintendent, I had my board try to hold most Tuesday nights because we had two board meetings a month. And I said, let's just hold the other ones in case we need something. So I don't know if you guys have a tradition or a custom or.
You can set it up. Tuesday is our meeting day. Right? That we can do that.
All right. Does that,
One meeting.
you have one meeting a month?
Yeah.
And then, like I said, this is really important work that you're doing. So adding a little bit more on there probably is going to be necessary.
Dr. Brotherton, I've got just a point of clarification.
Sure.
The community is expecting us to get the superintendent search moving and going now. In your opening remarks, you said that we had two separate processes that we were going to do.
Right.
One is securing an interim.
Right.
And then moving into permanent search. Can you help us understand that how those two processes will happen concurrently?
Yeah.
And we won't be waiting to start that search. Maybe you can clarify that a little bit.
So when we decided to go to the interim, that's not something that really Missouri School Board does. That's something that the internal Board of Education would do. So moving to that just gives you a chance to put somebody in place so you can conduct the robust experience for the community. I think that's what we were going to be missing, and we'll have more applications. So I'm saying there's a two-tiered process. One was to get this upcoming school year in place, get somebody that can, I don't want to say hold serve because we still want to keep moving, in order to then give us time to kind of what I just described, do a really deep dive into what is the community thinking, and hopefully recruit more applications and find somebody for the following school year and years beyond that'll do a great job for the school district. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Like simultaneously going on is you all are working on trying to find a really good interim. I have some of your survey work, we have some community survey work, but again, I feel like if we post too soon, we're going to just kind of have created another problem with bringing in applications. So that's why I'm suggesting waiting a little bit. And if you have somebody in place that you all decide on that you feel strongly about can do a good job as an interim, they won't finish until the end of June next year anyway. So that gives us a lot of time to work on who that long-term good fit person's going to be.
I think it's a really important point to make because the community wants to have a new administration in place. And what we've committed to is saying we're going to take more time. We will not have a superintendent in place at the start of this fall school year, right? Because we are making a conscious decision to take more time to get the right person in that role.
Absolutely.
You will have an interim
Right.
superintendent in place.
So
Somebody.
for more clarity on that process, Mr. Hodge, Steve and I, we completely agree with what you're saying. We want to be responsive to the community. I think that there's overwhelming support from the community that suggests that it's a better route to take our time and get a best fit for the district. That process for the interim, what Dr. Brotherton and I have discussed is, first of all, looking at internal candidates. And so any of the board directors have an opportunity by way of the subcommittee of the board for the superintendent search to participate in those interactions where we'll look at 2 internal candidates first. And then there's a short list of names. I believe I circulated that short list of names to the directors. And then from there, we'll look at that as well. And then together we'll decide with input from Dr. Brotherton on an interim. So the process is moving. Those conversations are starting tomorrow at 4:30, and then again on Thursday at 4:30, speaking with 2 of the interim candidates that Dr. Brotherton suggested?
We probably do want to put some communication out to the community that that's the route that the board is thinking about. And it's not uncommon for districts to make that decision. Actually, I think it's probably a smart decision. You can think of just in the short term, Rockwood did that last year. If you remember, their superintendent left the superintendency in April, May, and told them he wasn't coming back. And they named a person that was a retired superintendent that happened to be an area supervisor for DESI that decided he would come out of retirement and serve as an interim for this year. And they didn't really do their search and start their search until December. And they have Dr. Kane from Wentzville that came over, and he's going to be taking over Rockwood. So that's the same kind of scenario. They didn't really feel like that they were going to get somebody that was probably, like, if you think that Dr. Kane is National Superintendent of the Year, right? He probably wouldn't have been looking to apply if it were May and they were putting out the applications then. So that's a pretty common thing for districts that are this far along in the school year to do. Just trying to find that good person. That's the work that you all are gonna have to dig in and make sure that happens. And I know I talked to Sheila a little bit about, like, you want to not, you look at the pros and cons. You want to have that robust experience, but you also don't want to have something where we're just stagnant for a year. So that's why you would look at internal folks that understand your strategic plan, or folks that have had like Rockwood's retired superintendent, or somebody that has had a robust experience somewhere else that can bring those thoughts to your district. And then knowing it's going to be for 1 year, it's a pretty finite group of folks that are looking at those kinds of positions. Anything else?
Everybody the feedback that you gave Ms. Dr. Petty on the suggested
Folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to do that in exact closed session,
At some
right?
point, I'd like to do that so people will understand why.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, but as I just said, for the community and those folks that are listening in, and Dr. Petty said too, you're looking at folks that understand the district and the strategic plan internally, and then maybe some folks like I just described that Rockwood did that might be a retired superintendent or has some experience that would be a good skill set to get you through this year.
I've got to
say this particularly for people who are there who might have suggested folks. And there is clear thinking around everyone who has been suggested as interim. That's what I want to get to. We can't talk about it because there are names mentioned, but I do want to say that the group is listening to you and others around the appropriateness of everybody who has been suggested.
Yes.
Okay?
And I did call anybody that applied to point,
or anybody that had an application in process. I called them this weekend to tell them that the district was moving forward with an interim, but we really appreciate that they were considering applying in Normandy, and that the position would be coming posted again in the fall. We would hope that they still have that desire, that they would reapply. The way that the things are set up with Missouri school boards, they wouldn't have to redo their whole application. That would still be intact. They just have to go in and, if they got a new award or they have a new project and they wanted to tweak their application a little bit or tweak their resume, they could do that. The bulk of the work that they did to complete an application would still be in place in the fall if they choose to move forward and apply.
Great.
So I know probably if we would have been doing it when we first scheduled this, it would have been focus group.
I would have you going through survey work, and it probably would have taken a little longer. I'm sure you're not too upset that we're not taking a lot longer tonight, but I do want to make sure that I answer all of your questions and give you a flavor for what you're going to anticipate happening next year.
Well, we want to thank Dr. Brotherton for his time this evening, and we want to thank him for the efforts that are underway with regard to this most important undertaking of the Board of Directors. So thank you, Dr. Brotherton.
Absolutely.
I look
Thank
forward
you.
to speaking with you and our continued interactions around this process.
Thank you.
All right, so now that that's done, any other board comments?
Wanted to form the board before we go.
I think it's important that all of us know that about the travel that will take place on Thursday. There will be 7 people traveling to Atlanta.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that the process was followed that we agreed to on April 6th. I just wanted to inform the board, we can't have any more discussion than that since we're not in closed session. But I just wanted you to know that that's happening.
Okay, with that, are there any other comments?
I have no comments.
I have no comments.
All right, and at that point, is there anything else we're doing? Are we adjourning, or do we have something else?
We can adjourn. Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
all right.
no, we'd have to look at the thingamabobs. What am I
Oh,
thinking?
okay, all right.
Yes.
So we'll just look at that. Thank you, Dr. Brotherton.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you all my business card.
Yeah, perfect,
That's my cell phone, so.
perfect.
Get
That's,
something, give me a call.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the package, there are some contracts. I don't have my computer.
Oh, okay.
So I'm now unmuted, so you can
You know
hear.
what, Al? I disagree. I think not.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Dr. Brotherton.
All right, at this time, we will entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:14 PM.
So moved.
The motion is moved and properly second, and therefore the meeting is adjourned.